Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. On tonight's show, I'm pleased to have the Haddam Killingworth head football coach in his second season, an alumni himself, Tyler Wilcox. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me and being able to support the program.
You know, I've had a couple players from Haddam Killingworth. I had their former coach, Coach Becker, who now is with Hand. It's great to be able to have somebody from the program to, being able to talk about not just the pequot, not just Haddam Killingworth, but kind of the brand of football that is played. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Tyler.
Me too.
Now, before we get into how you got to Haddam Killingworth, even before being named the head coach and such, or just the whole thing with that, you and I were going back and forth about kind of where you played and whatnot. Now, you went to Haddam Killingworth, you went to WestCon. What attracted you to playing football? Was it the brand of Haddam Killingworth and being a part of that?
Yeah, and it all started with the youth program back. It used to be called Tri-Town. We were co-opted essentially with Valley Regional. Now it's kind of flip-flop. Now they play with us. So it's funny how things work out 20 years later. But yeah, just the brand of football that Tri-Town represented. Back in the day, it was hard-nosed, smash-mouth football. All my buddies did it. So I was like, yeah, why not? Try it out. And things fell into place from there. Ended up playing quite a bit in high school from sophomore year on at the varsity level, and then ended up being able to have the opportunity to play in college and wanted to get back into coaching.
Now, what position did you play in high school?
In high school, I played tight end on offense. We were a double tight, double wing team, so we really didn't have receivers. And then on defense, pretty much all over the place, just depending on who we were playing, but mostly strong safety. And that's where I played in college too.
Do you feel like being a part of a double wing T team to be able to kind of, like you said, there wasn't a lot of passing. It was more old style football, kind of what I see in the NVL a little bit, where it's a lot more running the football. I'm seeing a little bit more spread depending on the team. I know a team here in the NVL, Wolcott, is starting to go into that more spread, but typically double wing, the wing T is kind of the big thing. Do you feel like being a part of that kind of gave you a different glimpse of football in some sense?
Yeah, I did. A lot of teams didn't like playing against it. I know I had friends on other teams, they hated playing against the double wing. It was the same 4, 5, 6 plays over and over and over again. Smash mouth football is really just trying to break you down and then hit you over the top, which we did a few years ago. We talked about that as well too. But it definitely does. It was eye-opening getting into college, and now you're a full spread system and you're trying to learn things and you're like, I've never heard this before, like some of this terminology. So it was awesome being able to have that background in the double wing once I got into coaching, and then obviously the coaching at the collegiate level too, picking up things on offense and defense and being able to really blend all that together. So it's really just historical knowledge too as well.
Now that you're a first year head coach, and you and I were, going back and forth about what kind of brand of offense you could be running this season, do you feel like being exposed to, multiple schemes? We talked about the wing T, the double wing, as we mentioned, and then going to WestCon, where it was more, like you said, spread. You can throw the football a lot more. Do you feel like being a part of those offenses kind of opened the door to kind of seeing what other brand of football is, like we just talked about both sides?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, personnel dictates everything. I truly believe in that. We've had years coaching when I was an assistant on JV, or I was calling the varsity offense, where personnel wise, we really didn't have that quarterback where we could throw the ball, or maybe we didn't have the receivers that we needed at that time. So we stayed in the double wing. And recently we've had quite a few quarterbacks come through here. We've had a lot of receivers. So definitely being able to see both those brands of offense and know what to do within both of them. It's definitely beneficial to the kids too. I know kids when they're going off, like we've had Dalton Modine, who played in the spread as a running back, who's in the record books in Connecticut for offense. He went off to college and he's like, I'm glad we weren't in this double wing. Like I was able to see once I got to college, the terminology, some of it's the same going into that spread system. So being able to get kids that exposure as well, I think helps out too.
Now, the position itself, when did you first hear as far as the opportunity for the head coaching position, and how did that all transpire?
So Coach Backlick was stepping down when he was in his, I think, 5th, 6th season. It was right around there. I know he started a young family. He wanted to get away from it, spend a little bit more time with his family. So we were all talking about it as a coaching staff, seeing who we thought was going to be a head coach or see go through the process. And Then Coach Becker was hired, and I had the opportunity to work with him under his staff. I was swapped over to defensive coordinator with him, so I was able to learn a lot. And rumblings were he was going back to hand, and the position may be opening. So I tossed my name in the bucket and went through the application process and ended up being named head coach.
You talk about the opportunity, and I feel like everything happens for a reason. And to see an alum who paid his dues as you did, and then an opening came up, as I said, everything happens for a reason. Do you feel like in some ways that being an alum, knowing the I guess the magnitude of playing in the program, the pedigree, and just all that comes with that. Do you feel like that kind of helps a little bit more now going into year two with Adam Killingworth?
Yeah, absolutely. The kids, they respect it. They've seen it. They know I know what it's like to be a high school student, a high school football player at HK, and what the expectations are of them. I went through it. I did it. I came back, and now I'm coaching the team. And they take care of their own. The administrative staff, everybody's been great there ever since I was hired as a substitute and a pair and worked my way through my teaching degree. And they take care of their own. I just hired 2 assistant coaches this year that were alums from years ago. So they know the system, and it's better off for everybody.
You mentioning the fact of bringing over 2 staffers who are alum, I think is one of the biggest, I think, gifts when it comes to a program, when you're talking about being able to give back. And when you talk about the expectations and what is expected, I feel like that's one of the biggest things, expectations for a program. For you to be able to bring those alumni back and yourself to help the next young group, the next crop of HK players, because while they probably have heard about it, maybe they've gone to games, it's much different when you're going through the grind, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, if they come on late and they come on later in high school. Do you feel like having that much alumni helps as far as maybe kind of building the culture of that program?
Yeah, absolutely. These guys were part of the rebuild that we did when Coach Backlick was hired. Coach Backlick took over an 0-10 team, and within 4 years, we were in the state championship game playing Bloomfield. And these 2 that came back to work with us as alumni were part of that rebuild. They weren't on that state championship team, but they were part of the rebuilding process, and they know what's expected of them. So they came back, and now they're able to instill that on the younger guys coming in through the program.
Your first year as a head coach was last year. What kind, and obviously there's adjustments. I mean, on top of the fact that there was just COVID, there wasn't a season, there was 7-on-7 depending on where you were, but I digress. That's not real football. Much different than, as what we're doing in just about less than a week. I know you guys have a game on Saturday. That's your first game. What was it like, the adjustments? The players we'll get to in a second. I want to know about you, Tyler. What kind of adjustment and how, was it quick for you? Was it something where it took you some time? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, it was seamless. Just being in the program, coming up through the program, calling the offense and part of the defense those last few years with Coach Backlick. So that part was seamless for the play calling wise, but definitely as the head coach and having to do everything else on the outside, like the touchdown club meetings, going and meeting with students, like everything on top of being a teacher in the school too. It was overwhelming. My wife and I got married a few years back. We have 2 little girls now. So it was a lot going on at once as I got hired. So there was definitely a lot of things going on, but definitely the comfort of being at HK and being in a situation that I was used to definitely helped with that.
Well, congratulations on your marriage. I did not know that. So congratulations on that.
Going on year 6. So
year 6.
A while ago. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. And I got to ask, because I have a fiance, one day we will have kids, and having 2 girls, are you a daddy's girl, or who's the good cop and the bad cop?
Absolutely. I'm daddy's girl for sure. They were just at the scrimmage on Saturday going nuts cheering. My oldest, she's 2.5. She has her little pom-pom. She loves it.
So, I was just about to say, I hope she's cheering on HK. Hope she knows who's on whose side here.
Yep, she does. 100%.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully everybody stays healthy and continues on going forward. That's great to hear, Tyler. The program itself. Now, I know last year 2-8, if I remember right, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so obviously first year with everything going on, it's just hard. Some teams adjusted better, some didn't. And I felt like, even the record aside, I felt like wasn't as important as so much. Were the players understanding what you were trying to tell them? Were they being able to adequately being able to process through their brain what you were trying to do, practice every single day? Do you feel like that was something that was happening over the course of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we got better as the season went on. The biggest thing we brought in when we started the preseason last year was competing. Wins, losses didn't matter at that point. I wanted the kids to compete in everything. We were competing in the weight room. We were competing out on the field in drills. That was the slogan. That was on the back of their t-shirts, was compete. Any way you can, every way we can, every single week. And the kids did. They got better. It was a young group last year. We made some mistakes. We got out to 17, 21-point leads on teams and let them creep back. We lost 3 games by 6 points. We were that close to being a 5-5 team last year. And having all those kids coming back this year, that's a good foundation to build on. And the big thing, those kids who were seniors last year in our program, they were in my system 3 years ago, but then that was freshman year. COVID hit. Coach Becker brought his system in, and now we're back to my system. So there's a lot of terminology changes for some of the kids. Some of the stuff was the same as Coach Becker with his spread that he's carried around with him, but it was tough for the kids. It's 4 different situations in 4 years. So now having that junior class that are now seniors I have 18 of them, and year 2 in the offense, there's a lot of good things coming.
I think about, and to hear about how many systems, I think about NFL quarterbacks who have had multiple head coaches over the course of a couple years, or multiple coordinators.
Right.
There was one coach, one player in particular whose name is escaping me, who had either a different head coach or a different coordinator every like 2 years. And I can only imagine having to process all that. And for high school kids, that's just a whole nother level. And it's difficult for anybody.
Right.
But like you said, to be able to now be in year 2 under your system, I think will do very, very well. Now, I was looking at the article that was written by HK, or not by HK, but for you guys, it was on Game Time, CT Insider. You have 8 offensive players returning and 7 defensive players returning. Is that correct?
Right. Yep. The
Now,
majority were coming back that were all junior starters last year.
do you feel like, and then hearing about what you just said, as far as, some leads that were blown, maybe for one reason or another, do you feel like now being a year older, being under your system, having all those returning players, it just seems to me, when you think about what could a successful season, what could be a potential breakout season? All right, returning players, you've got a lot coming back. Check. We talked about offense and defense, 8 and 7. You talk about year 2 now. You're back. Obviously, you're here. Your system is back. Check. You think about the key players. Also check. We'll get into that in a minute. Something just tells me this has the makings of being a breakout season for this program. What says you?
Yeah, the coaching staff, the kids, we're all excited. The kids have been working hard ever since that Thanksgiving game ended against Valley. That was an absolute heartbreaker. That was one of those games we were up 17-0 against our rivals in year 1. That was the game the kids wanted. I wanted that one more than anything. We didn't have great luck against Valley the last few years, especially since when Coach Backlund took over. We beat them one time. That was when we ended up going to state. So that was a big Super Bowl at the end of the year. And a few things happened throughout that game. Mistakes were made. We ended up losing. So the kids knew we had to work hard going into the offseason, and they did. They showed it during passing league in the summer over at Sheehan. We ended up in the playoffs. We did very well. We lost to Southington, one of the great programs in Connecticut. But our kids competed. And these last 2 weeks in the preseason, getting ready for our 2 scrimmages we had with various teams, the kids are ready. The kids are excited. Like you said, year 2, same system. Key players are back. So we're all looking forward to an exciting season.
Talk to me about your quarterback, Phipps. Is that his name, correct?
Yeah, Alex Phipps. Yep.
Talk to me about him, because I feel like he played majority last year, right?
Yeah, he ended up playing last year. Tate Callender was our starting quarterback last year in the Old Saybrook game, and unfortunately broke his wrist on a rollout at the end of the first quarter. So we ended up with our second string guy, Matt Manasian. He was a transfer from Naugatuck over to HK. Ended up pulling him. Alex ended up becoming the starter halfway through the game against Cromwell. And he showed some great potential against those guys. And we know where they went on to. They ended up winning that state championship. So we had a good feel after that Cromwell game of what he could do. He could throw the ball. His accuracy is great. Decision-making is great. And he's just built on it. All of his receivers are all kids he played youth football with since he was a young boy in this school. So it's it's exciting. He's with all his buddies now. He's in charge, and he's taking full advantage of it.
And you just said as far as kind of the older group having played when they were younger, do you feel like too, and I know it's early in practice, so I know it's what's to say that what could happen weeks from now, but do you feel like the players in some way too are holding themselves accountable, lessening what you have to worry about in a sense as far as holding them accountable and focusing more on the schemes and the week of whoever you're playing? Basically what I'm saying is players policing themselves and putting less on your plate.
Yeah, absolutely. This group of seniors, 18 of them, love all of them. They're all hardworking kids. They were all in eighth grade when we went on that state run, and they knew that group in front of them, that was their goal from freshman year on. When they were leaving eighth grade, they all wanted to stay at HK. They didn't want to go anywhere else. They wanted to finish what they started through youth football, and this group's the same way. And they totally believe in it. I believe in all of them. The coaching staff believes in them, and we'll see where the season ends up.
How excited are the players to go from an offense where not a lot of passing, kind of the same as we talked about, the repetitions, typically the same couple plays, maybe you're wrinkling a couple here or there, but now having the spread offense to be able to throw the rock a little bit more, and you may see some more wide receivers have happy days going forward with that.
Right. Yeah. No, they all love it. They love it. Orion might not love it so much, but we'll get to him in a little bit as a running back. But they love it though. They love being able to spread the ball out. And don't get me wrong, when I told them, everybody knows, they probably saw the film when we went against Valley, I said we're pulling out the double wing, and like I said, it worked to perfection for half the game, and the kids bought into it. For those couple weeks of practice, we installed a few basic plays, and they kind of looked at me like, really? I was like, nobody's seen it in 13 weeks, a couple of years now with COVID, so we're doing it. And they bought into it. A slight little system change that we were able to do. It's our bread and butter. All this coaching staff, we can install it at any time. So they were excited about it. They threw a couple touchdown passes in it. So it's still the same, not spread, but they're still throwing the ball a little bit here and there. But they're really excited about the system. Throughout passing league, they were all there. Nobody was missing Monday nights. They were all living for that this summer.
You mentioned the running back Orion, and I would think he would have to love this. Maybe he's not getting the rock as much, but you think about the pounding of which the double wing is, the wing tee, as far as constantly, it takes a toll, not just on running backs, also offensive linemen. So I would think in some ways to go to the spread, opens up the gaps, because now you can only cover so many people. There's only 11 players on the field, right? So if you are covering, let's say there's a couple guys on the tight end, there's a couple on the wide receiver, you got one-on-one with Orion, who I'm pretty sure could probably beat most guys. Yeah. So now if you decide to then run the football, but they still have to be aware of the potential option to pass the ball, that gives him the pardon of the sea, because your offensive line is strong.
Right. And our line's coming back. We lost one guy from the line last year. They were a young group, but it's year two again in the system, and they worked out all summer, all off season. They're a much stronger group. They're a pretty good experienced group now. Now we just got to get all the pieces together and be able to check some things when we're on offense based off of what the defense is giving us. And Orion is loving it now that it's spread. He does it. He gets the rock, and he does, but he can be utilized in that passing game, like you said. Those one-on-one matchups, it's tough. He's one of the better backs in the Pequot for sure.
Because I'm just thinking, again, I'm not trying to tell you what plays to do, but me just thinking about options to be able to give a running back to kind of make them happy, because you want to have a happy running back. I think about jet sweep. I think about bubble screens, you know what I mean? To kind of give, because one-on-one, I understand that there's a lot of good defensive players in Connecticut, but when you have a player like Orion, give him the rock and just let him do his thing.
Right. And we're going to do that in multiple ways this year. So we're excited to see what happens.
Now, Tyler, before I let you go, and I really do appreciate you coming on, this has been a lot of fun being able to talk about HK football. The Pequot's got a lot of good teams. I mean, I saw a couple of them last year compete against some of the NVL teams in the playoffs. Granby Canton was one. Torrington was able to squeak out a win, and then they lost to then eventual Rockville, part of the Pequot. They played Killingly. Then Killingly was able to do their thing. The Killingly's tough. The whole RPO, the run people over kind of thing, is pretty cool. Not going to lie to you. Yeah. But the Pequot's got a lot of Stafford, the Bulldogs, they were in a lot of close games. I know Coach Mazzone was telling me, against, I think it was Kreml Portland, lost a very close game against them. That game could have gone either way. Pequot's got a lot of good teams, man. And, I feel like it really does prepare you for the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with S and double S. It's the NVL and the Pequot. Essentially, it's going to be a mix of teams from those two conferences. I feel like everybody's feels that way going into the preseason. Obviously, things can happen throughout the season, but it should be a good thing for both conferences. And like you said, the Pequot is loaded. There's great teams in the Sassacus and there's great teams in the Uncas, and we'll see what happens as the season goes. But I'm excited. It's a lot of young coaches in the Pequot. A lot of up and coming programs too that are been getting rebuilt over the last few years.
Now, is there one player, just to go back to the player side, because I like to ask this as well from coaches, is there one player in particular that maybe did not get a lot of credit last year that you think will pop this year and surprise some people?
Yeah, there's a couple seniors that due to injuries last year, I never had Orion, Alex Phipps, and Tate Callender on the field at the same time throughout the whole year, just due to three various injuries, and those are three of the leaders of offense and defense for the season coming up. So Tate Callender, he's the last calendar of the four to come through. Toby and Trey were integral parts to that 2018 season. His older brothers, and there's a couple others. Henning Colcio's a big, tall, physical receiver, one of the quicker kids. He's a track kid as well. He didn't get to play a lot last year because he hurt his knee. So he's coming off an injury. And then a couple other guys too that are younger underclassmen, but they'll fill in. There's definitely opportunities for them offensively and defensively. So I'm just looking forward to getting these guys all on the field together, hopefully for an entire season.
Coach, I really do appreciate you coming on again. It was a lot of fun to being able to talk about HK football. Best of luck this season. And who knows, maybe our paths will cross if I see you sometime in the playoffs when we're broadcasting the games, because it would be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Jeremy. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.